My parents demanded $75,000 for raising me, then tried to force my brother to choose between college or loyalty, so I paid his tuition myself. Until the age of 10. I lived with my Aunt Elise, 52, and Uncle Robert, 54, both females. My parents, Susan, 49, and Andrew, 51, worked in construction management overseas and left me with Elise when I was 3 years old. They called maybe once a month and sent birthday cards, but I scarcely knew them. Elise and Robert were my true parents in every manner that mattered. They taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with my homework and attended school plays. When I was 10, my parents returned with my baby brother, Lucas, who is now 18 years old and male. They had this great idea to be a regular family today. The difficulty was that I did not want to leave Elise and Robert. I threw tantrums, refused to pack and cried for weeks. Following the relocation, my parents became unhappy with my behavior and began limiting my visits to Elise's place. They told me I needed to change and stop living in the past. The house was not like anything I'd seen before. Andrew had a short temper and would rant about minor infractions such as leaving shoes in the incorrect place or not finishing meals quickly enough. Susan was always preoccupied with Lucas and considered my demands for attention as disruptions. I began behaving out at school, getting into fights, and my grades suffered. When I was 16, Elise and Robert were killed in a house fire. They were sleeping when an electrical breakdown occurred. I was distraught, but my parents would not let me take time from school. Andrew stated that while mourning is natural, life must go on. When my guidance counselor suggested that I talk to someone about the loss, Susan dismissed it as a waste of money and advised me to toughen up. I began skipping classes and hanging out with students who smoked under the gym. I tried marijuana for the first time that year and began drinking on weekends. I wasn't hooked or anything severe, but I was certainly making poor decisions. One night I arrived home inebriated and Andrew was waiting for me. He grabbed my arm, shook me and said I was a disappointment to the family. The following day they enrolled me at a boarding school 3 hours away. The boarding school did assist. It had structure, decent teachers, and I was free of the continual stress at home. I improved my academics, stopped drinking and graduated with good scores. I even got into a public institution on a half scholarship. However, Andrew declined to help with the remaining tuition. He said he had already spent enough money on me through boarding school tuition and I needed to learn responsibility. I took out school loans and worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my expenditures. Meanwhile, Lucas received a car for his 16th birthday and my parents established a college fund for him while he was still in middle school. Following graduation, I relocated to another city for job. I began as a junior analyst at a technology company and worked my way up over 6 years. Last month I was promoted to senior manager with a hefty salary rise. I currently earn $95,000 per year, which is more than I ever expected growing up. I was excited about the promotion and wanted to spread the word. I called Susan and informed her about the new employment. Her first query was if I was certain the job was authentic. She inquired if they had conducted a thorough background check and expressed surprise that a company would recruit someone with my past. I reminded her that my so-called history consisted solely of teenage drinking and poor academic performance with no criminal record. Andrew picked up the phone and began asking thorough questions about my income and benefits. He wanted to know exact figures, how much I paid in taxes and what my monthly costs were. I assumed he was merely curious about my life, so I responded honestly. Then the conversation took an unusual turn. Andrew began discussing all the money they had spent on me over the years. He noted the boarding school fees, which were approximately $30,000. He brought up medical bills from when I had pneumonia at the age of 12. He also estimated the expense of food and housing while I was with them. Susan jumped in saying that now that I was making excellent money, it was time to start paying them back. She explained that Lucas was entering college next year and that they needed assistance with his expenditures. Andrew concurred, stating that successful children had a responsibility to assist their parents, especially after everything they had given. I wondered what they meant by sacrifices. Andrew mentioned the boarding school again, as well as the cost of flying back from overseas to deal with my behavioral issues when I was younger. Susan described how uncomfortable it was when teachers complained about my low performance and how it harmed their reputation in the community. I tried to explain that I had previously paid my own way through college and was just starting to save. Andrew intervened and stated that it was immaterial, because family comes first. He calculated that I should be able to pay them at least $500 per month, plus help with Lucas's college expenses. The conversation lasted 2 hours. They took turns explaining why I owed them money and how Lucas deserved the same opportunities they denied me. Susan stated I was being selfish by keeping all of my earnings when I should be assisting my family. Andrew reminded me that he was becoming older and might require financial assistance in retirement. I said I needed to think about it and ended the call. But I couldn't quit thinking about how they handled Lucas. Compared to me, he received the college fund, the car, a solid living situation and their undivided attention. Boarding school was my punishment and student loans taught me about responsibility. 3 days later, Susan called back. She had devised a payment plan in which I would pay them $600 each month for the next 5 years to reimburse their previous expenses. She also requested that I start contributing $300 per month to Lucas's college fund. Immediately she explained that they had already informed Lucas that I would be assisting him with his schooling and that he was looking forward to attending his first choice school. I questioned her why they never mentioned repayment before I was promoted. Susan explained that they knew I couldn't afford it on my prior wage, but now that I was successful it was time to move ahead. She also remarked that all of their friends' children helped support their parents and she was embarrassed to acknowledge that I had never contributed. Andrew called and told me I had 1 week to make a decision on the payment plan. He reminded me that my parents deserved to be respected and financially supported. He said if I declined it would show that I was still the selfish person I had been as a teenager. Susan finished the call by adding she hoped I would make the right decision for the family. She stated that Lucas was dependent on my assistance and I shouldn't let him down the way I had disappointed them when I was younger. I have not phoned them back and the week's deadline passed 2 days ago. My phone has been constantly ringing, but I keep sending it to voicemail. The texts are becoming more confrontational, with Andrew accusing me of disrespect and Susan threatening to cut off contact if I do not react quickly. I kept thinking about how they never asked how I was doing after a promotion or congratulated me on my accomplishment. The entire chat revolved around what I could do for them financially. I can't help comparing it to how they treat Lucas, who has praised for much smaller accomplishments but has never been expected to contribute to the household. Part of me wonders if I really owe them anything for parenting me, even though it didn't feel like the kind of upbringing I received from Elise and Robert. Another part of me believes they are just interested in my achievement now because it will help them financially. I am not sure what to do next. Should I agree to provide some money to keep the peace, or should I simply ignore their demands? I'm torn between feeling ungrateful and thinking they're manipulative. Update 1. Since my previous post, the situation with my parents has deteriorated significantly. I declined to accept their payment plan, but I also did not call them back to clarify my reason. I hoped that if I ignored it long enough, they would drop the matter and we could resume our normal distant but courteous relationship. I was mistaken. 2 weeks ago, Lucas called me. He was disappointed and perplexed, since Susan and Andrew had informed him that I was paying for his college, but then abruptly claimed that I had changed my mind. He said they informed him I was going through a selfish period and didn't want to support my family anymore. Lucas asked me directly what was going on. I tried to explain that our parents had never discussed this college finance scheme with me previously and were asking that I pay for it. I informed him of their repayment demands and how they determined I owed them money for my childhood costs. He remained quiet for a long time after I described everything. Then he explained that he had no idea they were asking me to repay them for rearing me. He assumed I had offered to help with his college expenses. Since I was now successful, Susan had informed him that I was thrilled to be the big brother who could afford to help. Lucas apologized for assuming I had made a promise only to break it. He stated he would discuss the issue with our parents and make it clear that he did not expect me to pay for anything. I assumed that would be the end of it. Lucas seemed sensible and I assumed he would work things out with Susan and Andrew, but 3 days later I received an angry voicemail from Andrew, who claimed I had poisoned Lucas against them and was attempting to destroy their family togetherness. Susan apparently became enraged when Lucas informed them that he did not need me to pay for college and that he understood why I was not making regular payments. She accused me of influencing Lucas and turning him on his parents. Andrew claimed I was spreading lies about their parenting and trying to portray myself as a victim. The voicemail was 15 minutes long. Andrew went through a detailed accounting of what I had cost them financially and emotionally over the years. He mentioned the boarding school again, but this time he included interest charges, as if the fees were a loan I had defaulted on. He determined that I now owe them about $75,000, including compound interest over the years. He also argued that my failure to assist Lucas demonstrated that I had never cared about family. He said that successful individuals usually help their families and my selfishness demonstrated that I had not truly grown from the unhappy youngster. They recalled the message concluded with Andrew, stating that they were done with my rude behavior. He said that if I did not provide them $1,000 as a good faith payment right away, they would consider me dead to them. Susan called in the end and claimed I was like my father's brother, who abandoned his family when he earned money, and they should have expected this type of betrayal. I had not heard of this uncle before, so I called my cousin, David $35 million, who was more knowledgeable about our extended family history. David informed me that Andrew's brother, Paul, had loaned Andrew money years ago to establish his overseas construction business. When Paul begged for repayment when Andrew became successful, Andrew refused, accusing Paul of being greedy. They hadn't communicated for almost 20 years. This revelation made me think that Andrew could be putting his own guilt over the situation with Paul onto me. He owes money to a family member and never paid it back, but now he's demanding that I pay him for charges. I never promised to pay. I decided to call Susan and try to calmly discuss the problem. I wanted to clarify that I was not attempting to harm Lucas or damage their family. I simply couldn't afford the payment schedule they had demanded. The conversation didn't go well. Susan immediately began ranting about how I had turned Lucas against them and derailed their plans for his schooling. She stated that Lucas was now asking why they treated me differently growing up, which was causing problems in their household. I inquired what she meant when she said Lucas was doubting their parenting. She explained that he had been wondering why I was sent to boarding school while he had never faced similar penalties for his mistakes. He also questioned why they had formed a college fund for him but not for me. Susan accused me for instilling these beliefs in Lucas's mind. She claimed I was jealous of Lucas's attention and was attempting to make him feel bad about his advantages. She claimed I was trying to split their family because I couldn't accept that they loved Lucas more than me. That last part caught me off surprise. She had never explicitly stated that they treated us differently or that Lucas was their favorite. I asked her to repeat what she just said about loving Lucas more. Susan paused, then clarified that she had not meant it that way. She attempted to backtrack, claiming that parents love all of their children equally, but some are easier to raise than others. She claimed Lucas was always well-behaved and grateful, but I had been difficult and demanding from the start. I asked her why they had separated me from Elise and Robert if I was so difficult to manage. Susan became defensive, claiming they were my true parents and had every right to raise me. She claimed Elise and Robert had spoiled me, making me expect special attention that the real world would not deliver. Susan demanded that I call Lucas and tell him that our parents had treated both of us fairly. She wanted me to persuade him that the disparities in our treatment were justified by my behavioral issues. She threatened that if I didn't remedy the mess I had caused, the rest of our extended family would learn how selfish and ungrateful I had become. I did not make the call to Lucas. Instead, I decided to cease replying to my parents' messages and phone calls altogether. I changed my work phone number and banned their personal numbers on my cell phone. However, they obviously obtained my new work phone number, since my assistant informed me yesterday that a woman claiming to be my mother had called 3 times to speak with me regarding a family situation. She asked my assistant to validate my income and job title, alleging that she needed the information for insurance purposes. I instructed my assistant to direct any calls from Susan or Andrew to voicemail and not to disclose any information about my employment to anybody pretending to be family members. This morning I discovered why they were so persistent in contacting me. Lucas texted me that Susan and Andrew had arrived at his university unexpectedly and caused a disturbance in his hostel. They were demanding that he phone me and ask me to start making monthly payments to them. Lucas reported that other pupils saw Susan crying in the hallway about how I had abandoned my family after becoming successful. Andrew was supposedly telling everybody who would listen that I owed them money and refused to pay my bills. When they refused to leave Lucas's dorm, university security had to take them off the property. Lucas was ashamed and asked if there was anything I could do to get them to stop involve him in our argument. I understood my technique of ignoring them was making it worse for Lucas. They were using him to get at me and it was unfair to put him in that situation. I'm debating whether I should respond to them directly or continue to let them exacerbate the problem on their own. Update 2. I believe my parents would eventually calm down and stop demanding money, but the matter has gotten entirely out of hand. What I learned about their financial status has made things considerably more problematic. Following my last report, I decided to call Susan and Andrew to try to put an end to their harassment of Lucas. I wanted to have one final chat in which I explicitly explained my limits and requested that they leave my brother out of our conflict. The call began with Andrew immediately demanding to know why I had been ignoring them. He replied, "Successful people don't ignore their family responsibilities and I was setting a bad example for Lucas." Susan interjected, saying that Lucas was suffering in college because of the stress I had caused by refusing to help with his tuition. I told them I'd consider paying a small sum to Lucas's schooling, provided they stopped seeking repayment for my childhood costs. I thought this was a reasonable solution that would aid my brother without succumbing to their larger financial demands. Andrew quickly refused this offer. He claimed I couldn't choose which family commitments to fulfill. He wanted the whole monthly payment schedule we had agreed on, plus the college contribution, plus a lump sum to cover what he called back payments for the months I had already missed. During their dispute, Susan revealed some information that explained why they were so anxious for money. She added that they were overdue on their mortgage payments and had relied on my help to prevent foreclosure proceedings. After the call finished, I decided to conduct some research. I searched up public records for their property and discovered that they had refinanced their home 3 times in the previous 5 years. They currently owe more than the house is worth, and there are other liens on the property for unpaid construction costs. I also discovered that Andrew's construction business had failed 2 years ago. He had been bidding on jobs at a loss to keep the company afloat and had eventually declared bankruptcy. Susan's part-time employment at a dental office was insufficient to meet their costs after Andrew lost his company revenue. This knowledge made me conclude that their newfound interest in my success was not based on family responsibilities. They were in financial devastation and regarded my income as a solution to their issues. Their requests came shortly after I told them about my promotion, which made a lot more sense. Today, I decided to call Lucas and tell him what I had learned. He deserved to know that our parents were in significant financial distress and had planned to utilize my money to solve their problems, without fully disclosing the truth. Lucas was startled when I told him about the mortgage problems and Andrew's failed business. He stated that our parents had never revealed any financial concerns to him. They had been discussing taking a vacation to Europe next summer and had recently purchased new furniture for the house. He said something else that disturbed me. Susan had been asking him comprehensive questions about my employment, my residence, and whether I had mentioned any savings or assets. She also suggested that he approach me for money personally, believing that I would be more generous if the request came from him rather than our parents. Lucas stated that he refused to manipulate me for money, which made Susan unhappy. She told him he was being naive about how families operated and that successful siblings had a responsibility to aid less fortunate relatives. 2 days after speaking with Lucas, I received a certified letter from a lawyer representing Susan and Andrew. The letter said that I had verbally agreed to offer financial support to my parents and was now in breach of that commitment. The lawyer requested $15,000 in immediate back payments, plus $800 in monthly contributions. The letter also threatened to take legal action against me for the entire sum they claimed I owed for childhood costs if I did not react. Within 10 days. I brought the letter to my own lawyer, who informed me that the claims were absolutely untrue. You cannot make a verbal contract to repay someone for raising you as a child, and my parents had no legal right to seek money from me. The lawyer explained that the threatening letter was most likely a desperate attempt to scare me into paying. But the legal threat made me realize how serious the matter had gotten. My parents were willing to lie to a lawyer and possibly file bogus lawsuits to obtain money from me. They had gone well beyond normal family pressure and appeared to be harassing and extorting others. I decided to send a comprehensive response to their lawyer, noting that I had never committed to any payment plan and that their demands were based on inaccurate information. I also logged all phone calls, voicemails, and occurrences involving Lucas to demonstrate a pattern of harassment. My lawyer responded with a cease and desist letter instructing Susan and Andrew not to contact me at work or involve Lucas in their financial troubles. My parents responded quickly and viciously. Susan contacted me from various phone lines throughout the day, leaving voicemails calling me callous and selfish. She claimed that I was destroying their family and that Elise and Robert would be ashamed of who I had become. Andrew left his own messages threatening to contact my employer and reveal the type of person they had employed. He promised to make sure everyone in our hometown knew that I had abandoned my parents when they needed help. He also threatened to post about my childhood troubles on social media, destroying my reputation. Susan and Andrew arrived at my apartment complex last week, escalating the issue. They had sneaked past the security desk and were waiting in the hallway outside my door. When I returned home from work, Susan began crying and begged me to reconsider my choice. She claimed they were about to lose their home and had nowhere else to turn for help. Andrew stood behind her, nodding aggressively and claiming that I was the only son who could save them from destitution. I told them they had to leave immediately or I would contact building security. Susan grabbed my arm and told me that I couldn't just abandon my family when they were in severe need. Andrew began ranting about how much money they'd spent on me over the years and how I owed them my success. I had to contact security to escort them out of the building. The security guy informed me that Susan had been attempting to obtain my apartment number from the front desk for more than an hour before I arrived. She stated she had a family issue and needed to surprise me with critical news. Building management has now barred both of my parents from entering the property and set additional security measures to prevent them from returning. They also gave me documentation on the incident in case I needed it for legal reasons. The next day, I discovered that Susan had contacted my company's main line and attempted to talk with my supervisor. She informed the receptionist that I had stolen money from my family and that my employer should be aware of my character issues. Fortunately, my employer had standards regarding personal calls and did not route her to anyone significant. I understood my parents were not going to halt their attempt to coerce me into giving them money. Their financial desperation had driven them to lie, threaten, and harass me in ways that exceeded any normal boundaries. Lucas called me after hearing about the incident in my apartment complex. Susan told him an entirely different narrative, stating that I was unpleasant and unfriendly when they attempted to visit me. She said I had threatened to have them arrested simply for wanting to see their son. I told Lucas everything what had transpired, including how they had lied to building security to get access to my floor. He remained silent for a long time before admitting that he was beginning to see why I had been so resistive to their demands. He also informed me that Susan and Andrew had been urging him to drop out of education and work to help pay their mortgage. They claimed that his education was a luxury they could no longer afford and that family responsibilities required everyone to sacrifice. This was the last bit of information I needed to see how desperate and deceitful my parents had become. They were willing to harm Lucas's future, as well as our relationship, in order to solve their financial issues. Update 3. I've been putting off posting this update because I hoped the situation would improve, but it's evident that my parents' behavior will never alter. What occurred with Lucas convinced me that I needed to end all communication completely. After my last report, things went quiet for approximately 3 weeks. I hoped the legal cease and desist letter had finally convinced Susan and Andrew that they couldn't continue pressuring me for money. I was mistaken. The first indication that they were preparing something new was when Lucas called to inform me that our parents had enrolled him in a different college for the spring semester. They said his present institution was too pricey and that he should transfer to a community college closer to home. Lucas was sad because he was doing well in his current school and had established friends there. He had also been accepted into a competitive program for his major that was not offered at the community college. When he contested the transfer, Susan informed him that the family could no longer afford luxuries such as prominent universities. But here's the part where I realized how manipulative they were being. Susan told Lucas that if I had been willing to help with tuition, as promised, he wouldn't have had to transfer schools. She was exploiting his dissatisfaction with the school change to put pressure on me for money. Lucas saw right through this deception and declined to approach me about paying for his college. This infuriated Andrew, who warned Lucas that he was betraying the family by standing with me over his parents. The situation at their residence became so stressful that Lucas began staying with friends to avoid the regular fights over money and family devotion. Susan accused him of abandoning them, just as I had, while Andrew claimed that both of his sons were greedy and ungrateful. Lucas called me 2 weeks ago and cried. Susan and Andrew had told him that if he didn't come home right away and persuade me to start making payments, they would cease paying for his current semester and force him to drop out of college altogether. They were practically threatening his schooling in order to force him to manipulate me for money. This was new. Even their standards are low. They were willing to wreck Lucas's future to continue their campaign against me. I encouraged Lucas not to worry about his tuition and assured him that I would manage the problem. I contacted his school's financial aid office and agreed to cover his outstanding expenses for the current semester. In the following year, I made it clear that this payment was exclusively for Lucas and did not constitute an acceptance of owing money to our parents. When Susan and Andrew discovered that I had paid Lucas's tuition personally, they were outraged. Andrew called me, yelling that I was undermining their parental authority and interfering with their family decisions. Susan accused me of attempting to steal Lucas away from them by paying for expenses they could not afford. They insisted that I cease paying his tuition and instead give them the money so they could handle his education on their own. When I declined, Andrew threatened to withdraw Lucas from college rather than allow me to sponsor his education. This threat made Lucas realize that his parents were more concerned with controlling the situation than with his actual well-being. He threatened that if they removed him from school out of spite, he would move in with me and they would never see him again. Susan began crying, claiming that both of her sons despised her and wished to destroy her family. Andrew accused me for turning Lucas against them, claiming I poisoned his mind with lies about their parenting. The ultimate showdown occurred when Susan and Andrew requested that Lucas choose between preserving a connection with them and receiving help from me. They felt he couldn't have it both ways, and accepting my tuition money meant breaking his parents' trust. Lucas told them he had chosen me. He claimed they had demonstrated their willingness to sacrifice his future for their personal financial gain and he couldn't trust them to make decisions in his best interests anymore. Susan and Andrew disowned Lucas on the spot. They warned him he was no longer welcome at their house and that they would inform everyone that he had abandoned his family for money. Andrew stated that both of his sons were dead to him and that he regretted ever having children. Lucas moved in with me last week. He plans to finish college and then decide what kind of relationship he wants to have with our parents in the future. Right now, he claims he needs time to understand how willing they were to hurt him, only to get to me. I have received a few more threatening voicemails from Andrew, but they appear to have acknowledged that their tactic failed. Susan left one last message stating she hoped I was content destroying my family and that one day I would realize what it was like to be abandoned by my own children. The irony is that they ruined their own family by prioritizing money over relationships. They lost both of their sons because they refused to understand that I had the authority to refuse their cash requests. I've blocked each of their phone numbers and email addresses. I also told my employer's security department about the earlier harassment. In case they attempted to contact me at work again, Lucas has also blocked them, requesting that his school not share any information regarding his enrollment or grades with our parents. We are both doing great presently. Lucas is doing well in school and appears pleased to be away from the continual stress and manipulation at home. I'm focusing on my profession and finally saving money that I couldn't, while worried about family issues. I sometimes wonder if things would have turned out differently if Susan and Andrew had addressed the situation honestly rather than with demands and threats. If they had simply begged for help with their financial troubles and admitted their flaws and how they treated me growing up, I might have been willing to make a decent contribution. However, they chose manipulation, harassment and emotional blackmail instead. They were willing to give up their connections with both of their sons for the money they felt they were entitled to receive. That was their choice, not mine. Lucas and I are now creating our own definition of family, based on mutual respect and support rather than obligation and guilt. We both realize that the people who share your DNA do not always deserve your allegiance. Susan and Andrew are still facing foreclosure and have been begging other relatives for money. According to the most recent information I have received from extended family, they've been telling people that their sons abandoned them in their time of need, but it appears that the majority of our family members are aware enough of the issue to look past their victim tale. I do not wish people harm, but I also do not feel guilty for declining to fix problems. They made it for themselves, they had options at every stage of the crisis and they repeatedly prioritized money above relationships. They now have to deal with the consequences of their decisions. Lucas starts his sophomore year next month, and I'm very proud of him for standing up to their manipulation. He demonstrates that you may interrupt the pattern of poisonous behavior and pick healthy connections for yourself. As for me, I'm finally at peace with my decision to end communication. I spent years hoping to get their approval and acceptance, but now I see that once I became wealthy, they would never consider me as anything other than a potential source of income. I'm creating a life based on my own values and choices, rather than attempting to return debts I never owed to people who never truly viewed me as their son. Now let us go to the following narrative, Story 2. My best friend revealed his love to my fiancée just before our wedding. Now he's dating her sister and our friend's circle is in disarray, a shocking update. I never expected to be writing this, but I do need some advice. I'm Sam, a 28-year-old man, and I'm in a tricky position with my fiancée, Myra, a 27-year-old woman, and my best friend, Nathan, a 29-year-old man. It's been years in the making and I don't know what to do to get the complete picture. I need to take you back to the beginning. Nathan and I first met in 6th grade while working on a scientific project together. We connected over our shared passion of Star Wars and spent many hours debating which film was the best in the franchise. We were inseparable from that day on. Throughout middle and high school, Nathan was the most outgoing. He had a natural charisma that attracted others to him, but I was more quiet and socially awkward. However, Nathan never left me behind. He dragged me to parties, introduced me to new people and encouraged me to come out of my shell. By the time we graduated high school, Nathan was responsible for my tiny but stable group of friends. We both got into state university and agreed to be housemates. College was a thrilling experience for us. Nathan joined a fraternity, whilst I focused on my education and joined the chess club. Despite our diverse interests, we always made time for one another. Every Friday night we had a movie marathon in our dorm room, complete with microwave popcorn and cheap beer. Myra came into our lives during our sophomore year. She was a transfer student from California with beautiful brown hair and the most contagious laugh I had ever heard. Nathan noticed her first in our combined economics class and was instantly enamored. He spent weeks getting up the guts to ask her out and when he did, she accepted. Their connection was heated from the beginning. Myra was passionate and free-spirited, which complemented Nathan's adventurous character. They'd take unexpected road trips, crash parties, and engage in passionate disputes about anything from politics to pizza toppings. However, their devotion brought volatility. They'd have heated debates that would rock the walls of our hostel, followed by equally emotional reconciliations. When things were too hot, I often found myself in the midst, acting as a mediator. It was exhausting, but I loved deeply about both of them and wanted them to be happy. Despite the tension, there were also some enjoyable moments. We would regularly hang out together and I came to consider Myra a close friend. After around 6 months, Nathan and Myra had their worst disagreement yet. I never got the complete story, but it involved Nathan's ex-girlfriend attending a party. Harsh words were spoken, allegations were made and their relationship was officially finished. Nathan was devastated. He put up a tough front in public, but behind closed doors he was a shambles. I spent endless nights listening to him rage and cry about Myra. He'd switch between wrath and sadness, often inside the same sentence. It was at this point that I recognized how deeply Nathan had fallen for Myra and how much the breakup had devastated him. As Nathan attempted to move on, Myra and I became closer friends. It began simply enough. We'd have coffee between classes or study in the library. I was taken to her brains and unique sense of humor. She had a jaded yet hopeful view on the world and I enjoyed hearing her perspectives on life. Something changed between us around a year after Nathan and Myra ended their relationship. We were attending a mutual friend's birthday party. As the night progressed, we became increasingly engaged in conversation. The rest of the party drifted away as we discussed our hopes, anxieties and future goals. She kissed me as I walked her back to her dorm at night. I was astonished, happy and immediately guilty. I knew Nathan was not over Myra and I was concerned about how this would damage our friendship. Myra and I agreed to keep things private while we worked out our feelings. For the next few weeks, Myra and I met secretly. We'd go for lengthy walks through the park or have picnics in hidden areas on campus. I felt as if I was living in a happy bubble, but remorse lingered in the back of my mind. After about a month we felt we needed to inform Nathan. I was frightened of losing my best buddy, but I knew I couldn't continue to lie to him. We sat him down in our dorm room and delivered the news. To my astonishment and relief, Nathan appeared genuinely thrilled for us. He said he was over Myra and relieved that his two greatest buddies had found each other. He hugged both of us and joked about becoming our wingman. I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the next few years everything seemed ideal. Myra and I grew closer and our connection deepened. Nathan remained a constant in our life and the three of us frequently hung out together. We all graduated, obtained jobs in the same city and remained a close group. Last year I decided to propose to Myra. I spent months planning the perfect proposal with Nathan's aid. To make it extra special, on a lovely fall evening I took Myra to the rooftop garden for our first official date, with the city lights glittering below us and lovely music playing in the background. I got down on one knee and asked her to marry him. She agreed and as we hugged, Nathan emerged with champagne to celebrate with us. I asked Nathan to be my best man and he happily agreed. He poured himself into organizing my bachelor party and assisting with wedding plans. He was the buddy I'd always known to be, encouraging, enthusiastic and always ready with a joke to lighten the mood when wedding stress became too much. But approximately 2 months ago things began to alter. Nathan started acting strangely around Myra. He'd make bizarre remarks about their previous relationship or bring up internal jokes they used to have. At first I dismissed it as nostalgia, but it became more regular. Then last week everything came apart. Myra approached me in tears after a mutual friend's birthday party. She claimed Nathan cornered her at the party and revealed that he still had feelings for her. He informed her that he had never stopped loving her and that marrying me would be a mistake. Myra was stunned and immediately left the party to inform me. I confronted Nathan the following day. To his credit, he did not attempt to refute it. He admitted everything Myra had told me. He stated he had suppressed his feelings for years and couldn't take the thought of Myra marrying someone else, even if it was me. He begged me to understand, stating he couldn't help his feelings. I was infuriated. I felt deceived by my dearest buddy of more than 15 years. Had all of his efforts to promote our relationship, including a proposal and wedding plans, been an act? I informed Nathan that I wanted space and that he was no longer welcome at the wedding. He departed looking distraught and I haven't spoken with him since. Now I am torn. A part of me wants to forgive Nathan. We've been through a lot together and I understand how much Myra has hurt him in the past. I recall how distraught he was after their breakup and I'm curious if he ever completely got over her. But another part of me is enraged and believes this is an inexcusable breach of trust. He's had years to accept Myra and I's relationship. Why wait until we're ready to get married, to bring this up and then go behind my back and declare his affections to Myra? This feels like a betrayal of our friendship. Myra is naturally uncomfortable around Nathan right now and she does not want him at our wedding. She admits to feeling guilty, despite the fact that she did nothing wrong. I despise seeing her upset and knowing that my best buddy caused the anguish. I'm also concerned about how this may influence our larger friend group. Nathan and I have numerous shared friends, some dating back to high school. I don't want to force them to take sides, but I'm not sure I can be around Nathan right now without feeling angry and betrayed. Our wedding is in 3 months and what should have been a happy occasion is now clouded by this drama. I'm having trouble focusing on work and Myra and I are bickering more as the stress of the situation mounts. Am I overreacting? Should I try to recover my friendship with Nathan, or is this the end of it? How can I maintain my friendship with Myra while navigating this mess? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. It's been nearly a month since my previous post and a lot has happened. I would want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It truly helped me have a better perspective on the problem. After much deliberation and several lengthy conversations with Myra, I decided to meet with Nathan to completely understand his perspective. We planned to meet at Oakwood Park, where we used to hang out as children. It felt appropriate given the history of our friendship. When I got to the park, I spotted Nathan seated on our old favorite bench near the duck pond. He looked dreadful, as if he had not slept well. As I approached, he stood up. His expression a mix of hope and dread. We began walking around the pond with an unpleasant stillness between us. Finally, Nathan broke the ice. He began by apologizing profusely. He admitted that his acts were selfish and unacceptable. He added that seeing Myra and me so happy together had reawakened old feelings he believed were long forgotten. Then Nathan disclosed something I didn't know. He stated that he has been dealing with depression for the past year. He had lost his work 6 months ago and was too humiliated to notify anyone. The stress of unemployment, combined with watching Myra and I plan our wedding, had thrown him into a downward spiral. While I appreciated Nathan's candor, I informed him that his mental health difficulties did not excuse his behavior. I stated how upset and betrayed I felt, not only for myself but also for Myra. Nathan listened intently and nodded, tears in his eyes. Just when I thought the conversation couldn't get much more heated, Nathan dropped a bombshell. He admitted that he had been surreptitiously seeing Myra's younger sister, Lily 24F, for the past 3 months. They apparently reconnected during our engagement party and struck it off. Nathan expressed guilt about the relationship, which exacerbated his inner struggle and contributed to his outburst at Myra. I was shocked. This revelation added an entirely new level of intricacy to the problem. I asked Nathan why he hadn't told me about Lily earlier. He stated he was concerned about how I would respond, considering our past with Myra, and he wasn't sure if the relationship would endure. As we continued walking, Nathan revealed more about his relationship with Lily. He stated that she had been a source of support during his despair, encouraging him to get therapy and even assisting him in finding work opportunities. He admitted that he was developing genuine love for her, which made him feel even more awful about his outburst at Myra. Following our conversation, I went home to share everything with Myra. She was just as astonished as I was by Nathan and Lily. She revealed that Lily had been acting strangely recently, canceling their weekly sister lunches and being vague about her plans. However, Myra had no idea it was due to her relationship with Nathan. Myra and I spent hours discussing the situation. We were both saddened and deceived by Nathan's behavior, but we also recognized the complex emotions at play. We discussed our personal relationships and how the incident had affected them. Myra admitted that she had been having reservations about the wedding, not because of Nathan's revelation, but because of the strain it had placed on our relationship. This admission sparked a serious, honest conversation about our future together. We renewed our love for each other and pledged to make our relationship work. We decided that, while Nathan could not attend our wedding as planned, we did not want to completely cut him out of our lives. We came to a compromise. We told Nathan that he may attend the wedding as a guest, but not as my best man. We also instructed him to keep his distance from Myra at the event and to bring Lily as his date to avoid any embarrassing situations. Nathan agreed to our terms, obviously happy that he hadn't lost us altogether. He pledged to respect our boundaries and improve himself to be a better friend. He also mentioned that he had started seeing a therapist to deal with his sadness and other concerns. Myra spoke with her sister for quite some time about Lily. Lily apologized for keeping her relationship with Nathan a secret, promising to be more transparent in the future. She also convinced Myra that her love for Nathan were genuine and not a ploy to get back at her sister. The situation is still stressful, but it appears to be improving. Our friends have been understanding and no one has been pressured to take sides. Some friends have even shared their own stories of problematic relationships, making us all feel less alone. In this difficult circumstance, Myra and I have chosen to postpone our wedding for a few months. We want to give ourselves time to recover and deepen our relationship before taking such a significant move. We're also using this time to reconnect with each other, go on dates and reflect on why we fell in love in the first place. Nathan has put himself into his job search and rehabilitation. He calls once a week to check in, always respecting our boundaries. It's a gradual process, but I can see hints of my old pal appearing. Our wedding is now scheduled for next spring and, while it will not go exactly as planned, Myra and I are focused on our love for each other. We're resolved not to let the drama overshadow our big day. I'll update again after the wedding. Thank you all again for your encouragement and wisdom. It's been a hard month, but I'm optimistic about the future. Update 2. It has been 3 months since my last update, and I am writing this from a beachside cafe in Bali where Myra and I are on honeymoon. A lot has happened and I would like to share it all with you. First, the wedding. Despite the drama leading up to it, the day itself was stunning. We picked a small personal wedding at a nearby botanical park. The weather was ideal, sunny with a moderate breeze that made the flowers dance. Myra was lovely in her flowing white dress and I felt like the luckiest man alive. As we exchanged vows, I noticed tears in her eyes echoing mine. In that instant, all of the stress and drama of the previous months vanished. We simply promised to love and support each other, no matter what life threw at us. Nathan came as a guest with Lily, as we had arranged. He maintained his distance from Myra and remained respectful during the event. I could see a range of emotions on his face. Happiness for us is laced with melancholy and regret. However, he made an effort to be sincerely supportive, even sharing a heartfelt congratulations with us during the reception. However, the true drama occurred later. At the reception, my cousin Alex 26 million, who had taken over as best man, became intoxicated and decided to give an impromptu speech. He began talking about Nathan and Myra's previous relationship, seemingly unaware of the current tensions. The room fell silent and I could see Nathan squirming in his seat. Myra grasped my palm tightly under the table just as I was ready to intervene. Lily stood up. She calmly but firmly urged Alex to sit down. Before giving a lovely toast to Myra and myself, she discussed the power of our relationship and how love can conquer any difficulty. It was a wonderful moment that relieved stress and brought tears to many people's eyes, including mine. After the wedding, Myra and I went on our honeymoon. We spent 2 weeks traveling around Europe enjoying each other's company and beginning our married life. During this journey, Myra told me some shocking news. Remember how I mentioned Nathan's struggle with depression? It turns out that Lily is a psychologist who specializes in relationship counseling. She had been assisting Nathan and working through his challenges, which was how they first became close. Myra learned about this via her parents, whom Lily had confided in. This insight provided a new viewpoint. While this did not excuse Nathan's behavior, it did assist to understand part of it. Myra and I agreed that we were delighted Nathan was getting care, even though the circumstances were complicated. When we got back from our honeymoon, we asked Nathan and Lily over for dinner. It was odd at first, but as the evening proceeded we all became more relaxed. Nathan apologized once more for his previous behavior and stated that he has been making progress in his therapy sessions with a different psychologist. To prevent any ethical difficulties with Lily, Myra and Nathan shared a private talk that they both described as healing. They were able to discuss some unsolved concerns from their previous relationship and clear the air. Myra stated that she felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Nathan and Lily's relationship seemed to be continuing well. They recently moved in together and are discussing buying a puppy. It still feels awkward to see them as a couple, but I'm getting used to it. Our friends have acclimated to the new dynamics. There are still some tense moments, but things are substantially better than they were a few months ago. Myra and I are settling into married life and planning our future together. We plan to buy a house and start a family within the next year or two. Despite the challenges, this experience has strengthened our connection. I'm appreciative for the help and advice I have received here. It helped me go through a challenging situation while keeping my marriage and friendships intact. Life is rarely easy, but with communication, understanding, and a willingness to work through problems, even the most difficult situations can be conquered. Update 3. It has been 6 months since my last update and I am returning with some unexpected news. Life has a way of tossing curveballs at you when you least expect them, and we've had our fair share. First good news, Myra and I purchased our first home together. It's a nice 3-bedroom cottage with a large backyard, ideal for the family. We plan to start shortly. We've been busy decorating and personalizing our space. It feels wonderful to have a place that is completely ours. We've also focused on our careers. Myra received a promotion at her marketing agency while I began a new project at my software company. It's been amazing to watch each other progress professionally while supporting one another at home. Now for the more complex stuff. Remember how I said Lily was helping Nathan with his depression? Well, it turns out that their bond was not as strong as we assumed. About 2 months ago, Lily approached us in tears. She admitted that she and Nathan had split up. What's the reason? Nathan kissed Myra's best friend, Emma, 27F, at a party. Lily apprehended them and put an immediate halt to the situation. She was devastated and felt deceived, especially given how hard she had fought to help Nathan overcome his problems. Myra and I were astonished. We thought Nathan had overcome his harmful habit, but he plainly still had a lot of work to do. Myra was enraged, not only for her sister's sake, but also because Emma had abused her trust. We agreed to confront Nathan together. He broke down and admitted to the kiss, claiming he had been drinking and made a terrible mistake. He said it meant nothing and that he loved Lily, but the harm had been done. Emma contacted Myra to apologize. She admitted that she had always had a crush on Nathan and became carried away in the moment. Myra informed her that she needed time and space to comprehend the betrayal. The consequences of this occurrence have been enormous. Our friendship circle is now again in turmoil. Some individuals are angry with Nathan, others are disappointed with Emma, and everyone feels terrible for Lily. Myra and I have found ourselves in the midst of it all, attempting to encourage Lily while also processing our own sadness and irritation at Nathan. For the time being, we have opted to keep our distance from him. It is apparent that he needs to improve himself before he can be a decent friend or companion to anyone. Lily has been staying with us while searching for a new place. It's been nice to have her around, and Myra's enjoying reconnecting with her sister. They've been to yoga classes together and are planning a sister's trip later this year. As for Nathan, we last heard that he had accepted to intense rehabilitation. He reached out to apologize again, but we begged him to give us some space. We don't know what the future holds for our friendship, but for now we must focus on healing and going forward. This entire experience has taught us a lot about the intricacies of relationships, the value of trust and the necessity of personal development. Myra and I are happy that our bond has stayed strong throughout this. If anything, these hardships have drawn us closer together. We're looking forward to the future, particularly our new house and our intentions to create a family. Life may be unpredictable, but we are confronting it together, stronger than ever. Thank you for your continued support along this journey. Your guidance and good words have helped me get through some difficult times. I am not sure if I will update again, but I wanted to share the final chapter of our tale. Here's praying for calmer waters ahead.